What's up, guys? This video has been a long time coming and several videos in the making, but it is finally time to get these SD headers on this 99 GTP. So let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, so the first thing that I've got to do is I'm going to get, I've already taken the intake tube off. If you're doing this on a stock car, you would just take the top of the box and the tube that goes to the throttle body. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is start getting the downpipe out of the way. To do this, I'm just going to do the bottom bolts first. Once those are out, I'm going to come back up top and I'll show you how I'm going to roll the engine forward so I can get to the back better. But I'll show you when we get to that. Okay, so day 2 check-in. I didn't get to film very much of the first day of working on this, but a couple things I have run into right over here in the back. As you can see, I did get the rear manifold in. It was a pain and it was impossible to try to get it in and film at the same time, so I didn't, but I will link a video of Alex Ripples where he shows you how to do that in pretty good detail. I'm just test fitting this crossover pipe right now, and I can tell you right now that there's going to be another issue because of how tight that is coming through here. And the biggest issue is the oxygen sensor, which you really can't see where that's going to go, but the nipple for that is down there at the base, and it's about a ½ an inch away from the firewall. And I'm not even going to try to fool with that. That is a stupid design. So I'm going to do something different. I think I may actually add an oxygen sensor bung to this crossover pipe and run it that way. That would be similar to how Zzp does their headers. So I'm going to have to mock that up and see what I'm going to do there. And then I'll check back in and hopefully we'll get more of this filmed. So the next little snag that I ran into, the oxygen sensor is just ridiculous to try to fit where they want it to go because it's maybe a ½ an inch away from the body. So I decided to take the crossover tube and add an oxygen sensor bung to it. So it's going to sit in there basically kind of like that, which is closer to where Zzp puts theirs in their headers. I think that will solve that problem. Another little added bonus that showed up while I was doing this, we're going to be taking these shorter stock style dog bones off and replacing them with the Zzp shorter dog bones. So same distance, just different material. but these are nice and light and they look a lot better. Another little thing that showed up halfway through were these Zzp Egr Delete block off plates. I got one for the exhaust and one for the intake. They were super easy to install, and though I know some people may think this will skew the results, I was planning on deleting the EGR anyway, and now is absolutely the best time to do it while they're apart. So after many days of struggling with this thing, not really many days, but at least many hours of struggling with this thing, some progress has been made. The main headers are mounted all the way back to here. Also, big thanks to Eric Lewis for selling me these billet dog bones, which I need to polish up a little bit more, but are already looking pretty good. There you can see the back part of the install, and up here and where I wrapped it. So first thing to point out here is I did have to go, I went and used the crappy little clamp that this came with. Let me show you a better picture of that. Because come to find out, that pipe is too close to that front collector for the pipe, for the clamp style that I got from Zzp to fit. I would have had to have gone and just gotten a straight band fitting or a clamp, and honestly I'm just kind of tired of spending money on this at this point. But be aware that that's what you'll have to do if you decide to do these. I can't even get into how difficult it was to get all this to fit. The crossover tube on mine apparently is not bent correctly, which from the best I can tell seems to be something that happens with SD headers sometimes. It would appear that their build quality is not very consistent, so just be aware that sometimes they fit and sometimes they don't. Otherwise, other things I did. This fan right here, as you can see, doesn't have a lot of space, but hopefully you can tell there is an air gap. It's not touching. But to achieve that, I did have to put some washers under those bolts and space the fan in towards the radiator just a hair. Not very much, but just a little bit. And I had to bend this bracket for the accumulator to allow the accumulator to sit a hair lower to give myself a gap right here. The crossover tube was a complete nightmare. There's just, I can't even, like I said, I can't even put into words how bad that was. The dipstick tube in the back had to be taken out to put everything in, and I've got it back in the hole right now, but I'm gonna have to secure it, but I'm having a hard time getting to where the bolt is that holds it on, but I'll get to that in a minute. And I did plug the existing O2 sensor bung and switch to this, which I put basically in the place of the EGR. It looks like it is very close, and it is pretty close to the head right here, but it is not touching. So it'll do, at least for now, but obviously there's some room for improvement in the future. But anyway, that's where we are now. The problem now is that I have to drill out the broken bolts in the cat back so that I can put the downpipe on. So that'll be the next thing to do, but I'm out of time today, so that's going to be done probably tomorrow. So I'll check back in with you then. the header install is finally done. Since I did not get to film as much as I wanted to, I thought I'd sort of walk you around and just sort of let you know some of the things I had to do and everything to finish it. And here are the headers themselves installed. So, some of the issues that I had. Pointers I will give you as far as, first of all, you are going to need to be able to take the dog bones off and roll the engine backwards and forward, which you saw in the video, to be able to get these in and out. The other thing is, these front headers will go in a lot easier if you take the fan shroud out. So I would recommend that. And spacing this fan motor out is also a good idea. Another thing I had to do, I bent this down and then I wrapped this tube in a heat protectant wrap there. I also wrapped the crossover pipe to try to keep the heat off of the throttle body and some of the other stuff there. In the back, here's one of the biggest problems that I had. This crossover tube did not want to fit at all. To get it to fit, what I wound up having to do was cut the brace between the big pipe and the rest of the rear header. Basically get everything together pipe to pipe and then force this manifold over and sort of bend the pipe back at the same time. It was a mess, and it was like impossible to try to film and do at the same time. So that was kind of a disaster. The downpipe went okay. It was a little short, but there was enough give in the clamps and stuff to be able to stretch it out. So all that went pretty well. The only other issue was the transmission dipstick tube has to be moved slightly. I unbolted it to take it out to put the manifold in, put everything else back together, then can't quite get to the bolt to put it back. So for the time being, I just have it zip tied to this hose to keep it in the right place and to keep it held over enough. It is in the grommet good, so it's not leaking, so there's no problem there. Like I mentioned earlier, the oxygen sensor, which if I had to do it again, I would do more up here towards the top. But that was what I figured out at the time, and whatever. It's not touching the head, so it's got enough room. It's okay. I did delete the EGR. That I think is a good idea in general, because just look at how much more space it gives you across the back of the motor. Anyway, having done all that, of course, I get it back together to check for leaks, and I thought I heard one. I go to check to see which part is leaking, and believe it or not, all of the header connections are not leaking, but I somehow cracked my resonator in the process of doing all this. So if you ever wanted an example for the kind of luck that I have, there it is. But anyway, it's together now. I drove it a little bit. It seems to be doing pretty good. So the next thing is we've got to set all of our baseline numbers again so we can do some comparisons, but I do not have time to do that in this video. It's already very long and this has taken me days. So I will get that in the last video in this series, which will hopefully be out pretty soon. I'm certainly going to try to get it to you pretty soon. So in the meantime, if you support my quest to ruin myself over these old cars, make sure you like this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel, let me know what you think in my comments, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and peace.